time, yeah. Oh, here we go again. Oh, 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 All I know is that the grease gets better when the skillet's hot, the dish sticks together. You say the cooking's done, but it never ends. Oh, here we go again, yeah. Oh, here we go again. So one more time, yeah. Oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again, yeah. Oh, here we go again. So one more time, yeah. Oh, here we go again.
At Seta Hotels, we have always adhered to the highest standards of hygiene and safety to make you feel well taken care of every step of the way. From the moment you enter, you will find our well-trained staff implementing protective measures that will put your mind at ease throughout your stay. A warm welcome greets you like always. In keeping with authentic Filipino hospitality, we go beyond our duty to make you feel safe under our wing. This includes online check-in, a travel and health history check, a screen at the counter for added protection, physical distancing, availability of hand sanitizers, and throughout the hotel, regular disinfection of high-risk surfaces and touchpoints using superior global products. Your room is your sanctuary. We offer you the safe haven, fully sanitized through comprehensive cleaning procedures. Similarly, stringent sanitation measures are implemented in our meeting rooms, set up in adherence to distancing guidelines and following servicing regulations. Dining is a la carte in the restaurants. Menus can be downloaded to minimize contact, and food to go is an added option. All these we offer in our online store, where vouchers for rooms, dining credits, and takeaway dishes can be purchased anytime at your convenience. Ensuring the well-being of our guests and colleagues is everyone's responsibility. This is inculcated through regular training sessions on occupational health and safety and regular audits based on government directives, as well as best practices benchmarked with international standards. Our suppliers follow the same. And overall, our safety officers ensure compliance and consistency. You will find friendly reminders and guidelines throughout the hotel, extending to our communication channels, where we can help do our share in promoting a safe and healthy environment. Safe at SETA, a symbol of how we take to heart the trust bestowed on us by all our stakeholders to provide them with one of the safest places for business, leisure, and employment.
Welcome to the Daily Garden documentaries, where the longest story is digital. Welcome to Caffeinated, Daily Garden's podcast series in partnership with Libra Shared Space and Cafe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayong hapon sa tanan-tanan. So, we would like to welcome everyone to another edition of Iloilo Business Online in partnership with the Daily Guardian and the Iloilo Business Club. So, we are all here, and I would like to request everybody just to maybe do some virtual reactions, wave your hand, or just raise your hand to indicate that you are here. Okay, so ari naman ta siguro, so we can start. So these sessions, Iloilo Business Online, are organized to inform our Ilonggo businessmen about the latest news and trends so they can steer their businesses through these very trying times. So we would like to inform everyone that we are also live via the Daily Guardian Facebook page. So di na ko magpalaway, without further ado, let us start our program. And I would like to request the chairperson of the Iloilo Business Club, Mr. Juan Jose Hamora III, to give us his welcome remarks. Let us all give him a round of virtual applause.
Good afternoon, friends, members, and partners. On behalf of the Iloilo Board of Trustees of Iloilo Business Club, I would like to welcome all of you to today's session of Iloilo Business Online. We are happy to have you again with us, and after a year of virtual meetings, Iloilo Business Club and our partners from the Daily Guardian are thankful for your continued attendance and support. We are inspired by your commitment and perseverance amid this pandemic. We hope through Iloilo Business Online, we are able to provide you a venue to engage with our national leaders, especially on topics relevant to us. We are honored to have with us this afternoon a special guest speaker who will formally be introduced later. He is one of the busiest cabinet secretaries from one of the most important national agencies in this country, the Department of Labor and Employment. Given that our workforce is the most affected by this pandemic, we are dedicating our conversation this afternoon to tackle the critical issues of industrial partnership and workforce development. I'm sure you will all have a lot of questions, so we hope the good secretary will indulge us with time to address them after this presentation. I end by thanking the Daily Guardian for partnering with us in this project. We also express our sincere thanks for Miss Velma Jane Lau from the Iloilo City Government for moderating our session today. Special thanks to Seda Hotel Atria for supporting us this afternoon. The pandemic is far from over, but it is my hope that we find ways to continue to lift each other up. Let us provide comfort and encouragement so we too can be comforted and encouraged. Stay positive, stay safe at all times. Let us observe the minimum health protocols. Madamong gid nga salamat, kag mayong hapon sa inyo tanan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for that warm message. Indeed, no, it is in comforting and encouraging others that we also find comfort and encouragement. So salamat liwat, Sir Hamora. And our invited speaker for today, as our chair has said, no, cannot make it virtually since he is attending the budget hearing at the House of Representatives at this time. However, he made an effort to leave a video message for all of us. So let me just introduce him as well. He is a graduate of Bachelor of Laws from Ateneo de Manila University. He held several government posts as Solicitor General, Secretary of the Department of Justice, President and Chief Executive of PNOC Development and Management Corporation, Cabinet Officer for Regional Development for Region 2, and a representative of one BAP party list. He is also a member of the board of directors of various corporations such as Philippine Plaza Hotel, Baguio Country Club, Philippine Airlines, College Assurance Plan companies in different capacities and periods, San Miguel Corporation, and Camp John Hay Development Corporation up to the present. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present to you a lawyer, human rights advocate, peace worker, and public servant as the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Employment, Attorney Silvestre Bebot Bello III. Let's give him this time.
To our dear friends in the Iloilo Business Club Incorporated, representatives from various local government units, members of the media, colleagues in government, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon to all of you. Maayong hapon. The Department of Labor and Employment extends our congratulations to the Iloilo Business Club for its successful run of the Iloilo Business Online, a virtual platform for meaningful discussion among and between the government and the private sector on pressing issues in the industry and various initiatives on business development and economic recovery. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk with you about how the pandemic has affected labor and employment in the past year and what the national government has been doing in response to this. This afternoon, you will hear from one of my hardworking assistant secretary, Nikki Rubia Tutay. I hope that her presentation will enlighten you about the issues the labor market currently faces and the important tasks we have ahead of us to see this country through. Allow me to personally commend you for being steadfast partners of the national government in preserving and creating a business environment which revitalizes businesses, investments, livelihood, and domestic demand, which in turn creates the much needed employment as we grapple with the pandemic. We also recognize your valuable contribution in helping us fight and recover from the pandemic, among others. By following government protocols, you help us in controlling the spread of the virus. By sustaining your operations despite the difficulties, you help us in supporting incomes for our workers. And by partnering with the government, you will help us in bringing back a vibrant and promising labor market in the country. The Dole has always been at the forefront of upholding decent work and productive employment in our country. Despite the seemingly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world of work, the principles of full employment, rights at work, social protection, and social dialogue remains crucial in ensuring a stable environment where employment prospers and industrial peace thrives. Moving forward from this pandemic, these will remain as our guiding principles in Dole, in making programs and policies relating to the enforcement of labor standards and occupational safety and health standards, security of tenure, wages, tripartism, and employment generation, among others, that balance the interests of both the employers and the workers. Early this year, the DTI, Tesla, and Dole, and 20 national government agencies launched the National Employment Recovery Strategy, or NERS, 2021 to 2022, the country's master plan for the recovery of the pandemic-struck labor market. Under a whole of society approach, we have been engaging with both labor and business sectors in the fight against the pandemic, as said sectors are at the core of this strategy towards restarting economic activities, restoring business confidence, upgrading and retooling the workforce, and facilitating labor market access in an enabling environment supported by good governance and structure. We hope that our continued collaboration with the business sector can help us leverage on the previous gains our economy has made towards a more sustainable post-pandemic recovery. Let us recover and rise as one. Together we will overcome, and together we will recover with better opportunities for everyone to thrive in the post-pandemic future. Magandang hapon po, ayong hapon, o madamo gid salamat sa inyong tanan.
Thank you very much, Secretary Bello. And I truly agree with Secretary Bello that our private sector partners, the business sector, has not faltered. They have been visible and present even in the midst of the pandemic. So that in itself has also already given us hope, as people of Iloilo and as Filipinos. So thank you again, Secretary Bello. As mentioned by Secretary Bello, speaking on his behalf is the Assistant Secretary of the Department on Employment and General Administration Cluster. Since our IBO session is short and sweet, let me at this point introduce her. Assistant Secretary Dominic Rubia Tutay is the concurrent director of the Bureau of Local Employment, which is responsible for promoting full and decent employment through policy and program development. She finished her Master of Development Planning degree at the University of Queensland, Australia. Master of Arts degree, major in Development Education at the University of Santo Tomas, and Bachelor of Mass Communications at Silliman University. Her initiatives include increasing employability of youth, developing career information guides, facilitating decent jobs, and promoting entrepreneurship, assessing 21st century skills of workforce, and developing new rules and regulations responsive to labor market changes, such as human capital development, recruitment, and employment of foreign nationals. She is also a member of the Philippine delegation in negotiating various free trade agreements specific to the movement of natural persons. Currently, she is engaged in measures towards employment and economic recovery, particularly on the National Employment Recovery Strategy or NERS. Ladies and gentlemen, let us warmly welcome Assistant Secretary Dominic Rubia Tutay. A round of virtual applause, please.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Secretary Silvestre Bello III, thank you for this honor to talk with you, the Iloilo Business Club, about how the pandemic has affected labor and employment in the past year and what the government has been doing in response to this. I hope this short presentation enlightens you about the issues the labor market currently faces and the important task we have ahead of us to see this economy through. The lingering pandemic has brought our economy to its knees, with the country coming under a recession for the first time since 1998 in Q1 of 2020. As the number of COVID-19 cases rapidly increased, community quarantines were imposed, shutting down 75% of the economy to save lives and protect communities from the virus. This came at a huge cost to the economy and the people, as we recorded a negative 17% GDP growth in second quarter of 2020. As the government safely and gradually opened up the economy, GDP growth steadily improved, with the country finally exiting the recession last quarter, growing by 11.8%, the fastest in over 3 decades. While this is a significant achievement for the country, our economy is still far from its pre-pandemic state. Employment was likewise negatively affected by interruptions in economic activities. Last year, we registered records highs and lows in our key employment indicators, with employment rate at 89.7% and unemployment rate at 10.3%, based on the average of the 4 labor force survey rounds conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority. This is the lowest and highest respectively since 2005. While we're seeing clear signs of the economy's recovery this year, the reimposition of ECQ in Metro Manila last March, however, set us a step back with an upswing in unemployment recorded in April and employment dipping down to 91.3% again as in January. In July, our employment indicators provide mixed signals, maintaining the positive trend observed with employment rate at 93.1%, unemployment rate back to below 8% at 6.9%, but underemployment significantly increasing to 20.9%. On the screen are the top and bottom 5 major industry groups according to employment growth during the pandemic. Wholesale and retail trade dominated the list, followed by agriculture with net employment gains of 1.783 million and 1.103 million respectively since 2009. The construction industry proved to be robust, coming in a third with 248,000 jobs generated during the pandemic. This can be attributed to the government's Build, Build, Build program, which seeks to boost the economy by funding large-scale infrastructure projects all over the country. As expected, transportation and storage and accommodation and food service activities experienced the most job losses during the pandemic. Community quarantines, travel restrictions, and global lockdowns dealt a devastating blow to these industries. Elementary occupations and service and sales generated the most jobs during the pandemic with net gains of 2.253 million and 1.467 million respectively. However, armed forces occupations exhibited the highest growth rate at 36% or a net gain of 31,000 jobs, while managers suffered the worst contraction at negative 27% growth or a loss of 1.27 million jobs. Around 760,000 overseas workers of the total documented overseas Filipino workers were displaced by the pandemic. Over 700,000 have already been repatriated, while another 50,000 await repatriation, and with the remaining 84,000 opting to stay on site. In response to the pandemic, the Dole operationalized emergency response programs to provide assistance to affected workers. First is the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, or CAMP, a safety net program that offers financial support to affected workers in private establishments that have adopted flexible work arrangements or temporary closure during the COVID-19 pandemic. Dole has released over 10 billion pesos for over 2 million affected workers through the CAMP program. TUPAD is a community-based emergency employment program wherein those from the informal sector who are underemployed, self-employed, and displaced marginalized workers whose earnings are affected due to the ECQ are given a 10-day employment, but not exceeding 30 days, and paid with minimum wage. Over 1.4 million beneficiaries have already received emergency employment under the TUPAD, or Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Workers. The goal of the Abot Kamay ang Pagtulong, or AKAP, is to provide a one-time financial assistance to displaced land-based and sea-based Filipino workers due to COVID-19. OFWs have been laid off from work, repatriated, and not given financial assistance by the employer are given the opportunity to be a beneficiary. So far, over 500,000 OFWs have received the assistance from the program, amounting to $33.55 million and $3.46 billion having been disbursed. As you can see on screen, the department issued a number of orders and advisories to help guide both employers and employees during the pandemic. On February 5, Dole, along with 19 other national government agencies, signed a joint memorandum circular constituting the National Employment Recovery Strategy Task Force. The Dole co-chairs the Nurse Task Force alongside with TESDA, with the Department of Trade and Industry as its chair. The NURS 2021-2022 is the Philippine government's master plan for the recovery of the pandemic-struck labor market. On 24 June 2021, it was institutionalized by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte with the release of the Executive Order Number 140, which formally adopted the NURS. NURS takes a whole-of-society approach in the development of a national strategy that addresses the social and economic issues arising from the lingering pandemic and the accelerated adoption of technologies it has induced. Businesses and workers are at the core of the NERS operational framework aimed at restarting economic activities, restoring business confidence, upgrading and retooling our workforce, and facilitating labor market access in an enabling environment supported by good governance and infrastructure. On Labor Day, May 1, 2021, during the Job Summit jointly conducted with the Task Group on Economic Recovery, the NERS Task Force unveiled its 8-point employment recovery agenda. The convergence of key programs of the NERS member agencies in the agenda is expected to contribute at least 220,000 jobs and assist over 1.4 million Filipinos struggling with unemployment and income losses. The enrolled programs and services improve labor market outcomes by extending assistance and necessary support to establishments to ensure business continuity, creating training and upskilling opportunities for Filipino workers to empower the country's workforce, and providing social protection to our most vulnerable groups. The task force aims to establish a mechanism to harmonize employment, livelihood, and training programs and projects, enabling cross-referencing among its members to sustain support to the economy and the labor force. Moreover, the private sector has committed to the creation of 1 million jobs for 2021, a welcome contribution in our effort to recover lost employment because of this pandemic. On June 30, 2021, key NERS member agencies headed by the Department of Labor and Employment and leading business groups joined forces to create 1 million jobs this year. The partnership project called Reform, Rebound, Recover, 1 million jobs for 2021, with the Employers Confederation of the Philippines will immediately source Filipino workers for deployment in the construction, manufacturing, particularly semiconductors and electronics, tourism and hospitality, export and business processing industries. On September 8, an initial 1,100 workers received the COVID-19 vaccine during the vaccination kickoff held in Intramuros, Manila. This was followed by vaccination programs held in Bulacan, Cebu, and Negros Oriental, and hopefully in other parts of the country where the construction and manufacturing are concentrated. Moving forward, the department remains focused on safely reopening the economy and sustaining the continuous improvement of our labor market. We continue to put a premium on occupational safety and health in the workplace, which is paramount to the Dole's mandate. We reiterate our call to all workers and businesses to continue strict implementation of the minimum public health standards. We urge all our workers and priority groups to get vaccinated and help minimize social, economic disruptions caused by COVID-19. We continue to be one with the country's economic managers in safely reopening the economy, backing much needed support for businesses through available incentives to ensure sustained operations and continued recovery of the labor market. Rest assured that the Dole will continue to work with the various government agencies and support initiatives such as the Task Group on Economic Recovery or TIGR and the National Employment Recovery Strategy Task Force towards the safe reopening of the economy and sustained improvement of our labor market. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Asek Tutay, for that very enlightening presentation. I am sure our local businessmen will be guided by the presentation that you have shared with us this afternoon. Now, we proceed to our question and answer portion, and there are a few questions from the audience that I would like to read. So before that, let me first introduce the persons coming also from the department who will be responding to our questions. We have first Ms. Grace Baldoza, the Division Chief of Bureau of Local Employment. Good afternoon, ma'am. We also have Attorney Nicanor Bon, the Division Chief for Bureau of Working Conditions. Attorney, good afternoon from Iloilo. And we have another
Good
one.
afternoon po. Nick na lang po, hindi po ako lawyer. Okay.
Oh, Nick, sige, sir. Another guest or panel, member of the panel, we have Dr. Felix Labanda Jr., a medical officer 3 of Bureau of Working Conditions. So these three guests this afternoon will be our panel of discussants, and they will answer our questions this afternoon. So, sirs and ma'am, may I read to you the first question that we have here? And anybody can just answer the question po. No? So first question is, may we hear the official stand of the Department of Labor and Employment on the issue of vaccination? We have at one end, the respect for individual rights and freedom of choice. But on the other hand, the national vaccination strategy to make our communities and business establishments safe to fast-track economic recovery. Can business establishments or LGUs impose employees to get vaccinated? Question.
Magandang hapon po. Sasagutin ko po yan. Yun po sa issue sa vaccination, nagpalabas po tayo ng advisory on that. Labor Advisory number 3. I think everyone is familiar with that. So, meron po tayong policy, prohibition against no work, no vaccine policy. So, yun pa rin po ang ating polisiya on that. Kasi po, ano po yan, is based on constitutional injunction. So, hindi po natin pwedeng magtanggal ng empleyado. Kasi po, wala po yan sa, sa ating labor code sa constitution. So, may due process po tayo. So, basically po, hindi po pwedeng ground for termination pag wala pong vaccination ang empleyado. But lately, meron pong pinalabas ang IATF, di ba po, yung alert level number 4. So, yung pong meron pong rule requiring establishment to allow only vaccinated employees to report to work. Yun po, it's a more of an exception. So, ito po yung, di ba, yung mga restaurants and personal care services doon po sa area under alert level number 4. So it's by way of exception. It's the government that imposes it. So yun po ang ating requirements. Dapat inoculated po yung papasok, pati na rin po yung customer. So it's a way of an exception and it's an imposition by government. So yun lang po. On other things, hindi po pwede nating i-require yung vaccination. What we are encouraging is for employees yung yung awareness campaign. Di ba na dapat kailangan mag-vaccine? However, ang problema po ay kulang pa po ang ating vaccination. So, yun po, we are trying to increase yung available vaccination. So, yan po ang sagot po doon, Madam.
Thank you, Sir Nick. Meaning what correct me if I'm wrong, what we're saying is that we're encouraging everyone to get vaccinated, but it cannot be a grounds for termination of the employees. Tama po ba?
Yes po, that's true.
And then more of an exception, we want the employees and the clients, both of the establishments that are opened now, especially for areas in alert level 4, to be vaccinated.
Yes po, because that's a directive from IATF. Government regulations po yun. It's by way of an exception doon sa alert level number 4.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Can we also, Ma'am Grace or Dr. Felix, would you like to say something also?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Felix?
Yes, Ma'am Belma.
Sige,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, regarding po that, ang tinitingnan din po natin is ang vaccination requirement po for our workers is a way to protect the clients kasi restaurants po ito eh. So, yung ating pong restaurants, di ba po meron siyang portion na pwedeng kumain sa labas, pwede rin kumain sa loob. So, yung kakain sa labas, hindi pa kompleto yung vaccination nila. So, if your employee sa loob ay hindi po vaccinated, at risk po yung mga tao sa labas. So government has to protect the consumers. At the same time po, itong consumer na to, na nasa loob naman, kapag sila ay nasa loob, kulob yung lugar, pasok po sila sa 3 Cs, di ba po? Enclosed, close contact, crowded. The probability of transmitting COVID-19 is higher, and we have to protect naman our workers. That's why the imposition of vaccination is meant to protect the workers rather than to repress their rights. Pwede naman po silang, halimbawa, hindi talaga nila gustong magpabakuna, they could be assigned to tasks other than the ones that are inside the restaurants. Halimbawa, sila po yung delivery rider, sila po yung mga nando sa back end, hindi po haharap sa mga customers. Yun lang po, ma'am.
Okay, I think that's very clear, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so for our next question, I would like to read the second question. A lot of business establishments have closed and unemployment is an ongoing concern. How has the pandemic transformed Dole's industrial partnerships? What will be the direction of the country's industrial partnerships? Any of you, sirs and ma'am, may respond. Thank you.
Yes po, ma'am. Good afternoon sa inyo pong lahat. Maraming salamat po for inviting Dole, and we are here on behalf of our principals po because of the budget hearing. But to answer that question, yes, the Dole is intensifying industrial partnerships to address the country's employment problems induced by the pandemic, and among others, as mentioned earlier by both Secretary Bello and ASEC Nikki Tutay, the department co-chairs the National Employment Recovery Strategy. And this is our master plan for the recovery of our country's labor market. And it's a whole of society approach. So we engage tripartite partners, including business sector, labor sector, and other stakeholders. And seeing the need for more partnerships as we go through the pandemic, an example of our collaboration is our partnership project with the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, the one mentioned earlier, labeled as Reform, Rebound, Recover, 1 million jobs for 2021. So here po, the commitment is to create, the private sector commitment is to create 1 million jobs, while the government addresses the bottlenecks and challenges to improve the labor market environment. So in turn, this will help achieve po our goal of creating the much needed jobs for economic recovery.
Thank you so much po. So I saw in the presentation a while ago of ASEC Tutay that there have already been steps that were done to achieve this 1 million jobs for 2021. As of now, ma'am, do we have the figures of the jobs that we have created so far as of September 2021?
Yes, ma'am. That one we are still consolidating, collating the figures with our private sector partners. But yes, we are working towards that. We are going towards that direction.
Thank you so much. That is very encouraging. Okay. I think we move on to the next question. The next question is, how will the current challenges of the educational sector, we refer to as synchronous instruction, affect the supply and quality of our labor force in the coming years? Is Dole implementing any program to engage with academic institutions in the country to ensure the quality and supply of skilled workers? And anyone po?
Sige po, I'll answer that question also because it involves po local employment. So we refer po to the latest issuance or assessment of the National Economic Development Authority. I think you have read that in the news po that there is a long-term impact of the pandemic in terms of education, and this includes the effect on the prohibition of face-to-face classes. So according to the study, the suspension of face-to-face classes from last year to this year will haunt the country with up to 11 trillion losses due to the reduction in future wages and productivity. And then it is coupled also with lost wages of parents who cut their work hours to monitor their children during online classes. So we recognize that, and we also have we recognize that effect in the education sector, having a long-term effect in our labor market and the quality of our workers. But we defer to our partner agencies in the education sector to take the lead on this concern po. But rest assured that the Dole stands ready to offer our employment facilitation and career guidance services.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a follow-up question on the second question I read earlier. I'd appreciate if you can ask anyone from the Dole group. Does Dole have an official definition of frontline workers, especially for the food and beverages? For example, the restaurants, hotels, industry in the tourism sector. This is from Sir Stanley Abila of UP Visayas. So do you have an official definition of what frontline workers mean, especially in the food and beverage sector? Sir Nick? Anyone?
May I refer to Doc Felix? Do we have a definition on that?
Sir Nick, currently po wala po tayong official definition of a frontline worker, primarily because marami po kasi itong economic impact ang defining of a frontline worker. Dahil po meron tayong frontline worker that is in the hospitals, that is providing the necessary medical services. Meron din po tayong economic frontline workers that is providing for the necessary movement of cash and the products. Now, both of these two, although they are both termed as frontliners, they have very different exposures towards our COVID-19 cases. That being said, kapag sinasabi po kasi na frontliners now, sinasabi po natin na meron silang matatanggap. Kahit nga po sa mga frontline workers natin ngayon sa ospital, pinagtatalunan pa rin. Sino sa kanila ang totoong frontline? Are the ones in the admitting section frontline? Or are the ones in the ER frontline? Are the ones in the wards frontline? So, because this has economic repercussions, the amount of payment that will be given, yung nilabas po ni DOH, meron na siyang brinakit na niya, may 3,000, may leveling because of the amount of exposure. Now, if we say na ito frontline worker, it automatically connotes to benefits that we may not be able to provide. And that is something that we do not want to say na you will receive this, but at the end of the day, you will not receive it pala kasi we made an error. So it's at this particular juncture, we have to we have to be careful on who we define as frontline workers po.
Okay, thank you for that. Sir Abila, are you okay with the response on your question? So the definition of frontline workers is really, yung repercussion niya is really on the benefits that will be given, no, to the frontline workers, no, the benefits. Yes, okay. Sige po. So anyway, you can just continue to chat your questions in the chat box. Just type them in so we can read them. Okay. So another question po. Thank you so much, Dr. Felix. Just to also inform everyone that Dr. Felix has forwarded to us the advisory on the guidelines on the administration of COVID vaccines in the workplace. It's in the chat box. You can just download it. Okay. Now, next question po. After more than a year of battling the pandemic, what policy recommendations can Dole advocate to our lawmakers to fast-track economic recovery? What are some Dole's pandemic-related programs which both employees and employers can avail? Maybe that is aside from the well-known TUPAD and CAMP, no? Although you can reiterate it, but maybe aside from that, do we have economic recovery programs coming from the department? And then what are the policy recommendations that Dole has on to advocate to our lawmakers to fast-track economic recovery? That's the question, sir. Sirs and ma'am.
Yes po, thank you for that question, ma'am. So as mentioned earlier, the Dole co-chairs the Nurse Task Force, and part of the 8-point employment recovery agenda is the passage of priority legislations, and this is geared towards economic reforms under the LEDAC Common Legislative Agenda. And among the bills that the Nurse Task Force is pushing for are the Public Service Bill, the Retail Trade Liberalization Bill, and the Foreign Investments Bill. And the DOLE fully supports DTI, which is the agency in charge or at the forefront in pushing for these legislations. And then also, the DOLE would continue to provide for our existing programs, our usual programs that may help in facilitating labor market entry of our workers. And they can avail, or our workers can avail of these programs based on their needs and qualifications through our DOLE regional and field offices, or through the local government units, public employment service offices, or what we call PESOs. And then if you're asking for another, apart from CAMP, TUPAD, and AKAP, well, another intervention that the DOLE could offer, but this is contingent with the Congress still, is the proposed wage subsidy. This is another part of the 8-point employment recovery agenda. In fact, number 1 of the 8-point employment recovery agenda, because this would really help not only our workers, but also as a form of wage subsidy, we are also helping the organizations or the establishments.
I hope, thank you so much, ma'am. I hope it passes, no? Mapasa siya po. Kasi truly it will help not just the workers, but also our business sector, who are the ones paying for our workforce. Okay, thank you so much. Any more, Sir Nick, Sir Felix, Dr. Felix, do you have anything more to say on that?
Yes po. Regarding naman po sa occupational safety and health, for this particular juncture, and lagi lang pong tinatanong sa amin, or most common question is, are we not going to change the category for our close contacts because of the Delta variant? So we are following the guidelines released by the Department of Health. So as soon as the Department of Health releases a new guideline, which they base also on the guidelines from the World Health Organization, that's the only time that we will issue any changes in terms of the close contact. Because even if it's the Delta variant, if you're still practicing the minimum public health standards as provided for the DTI DOLE JMC 20-04-A, we wouldn't have any problem. And we also issued a DOLE Department Order 224-21, which is ventilation in the workplace, which is aimed to reduce the viral load in your workplaces. So as much as possible, if you feel that, or if your workers feel that they are at risk, please show them that you are actually measuring the oxygen, the carbon dioxide concentration in your workplaces, and as mandated for in the JMC, please conduct a mandatory awareness raising, because this would would erase issues on if you are following guidelines on minimum public health standards, as well as address issues on vaccine hesitation, which is most common for our workers that do not know what it means to be vaccinated. So the truth na naniniwala sila is the one that they see in social media, and that is they would die in 2 years, which is we find absurd. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Yeah, I heard even last night somebody told me, hintay kayo, may lumalabas ngayon na new movie about yung parang zombies. Magzo-zombie na yung Thank you so much for that information. No, I think we really have to do the intensively, no, or extensively the information campaign on vaccination. And totoo pala, we just have to strictly follow the mag-mask, mag-sanitize, and then mag-social distance, and then hindi tayo masyadong we will not suffer the transmission too much of COVID. Sige po, salamat. Now, on to, I think I'm not sure if that's, meron pa po. Meron pa dalawang questions, no? First question is, let me read it. Let me read the question first. When, at what level, based on indicators, will national IATF decide? So provinces and cities outside of NCR may determine their status independently while continuing with reportorial requirements. This is the light that LGUs must have, hopefully less restrictions and much improved mobility soon. For establishments, we hope that by January 2022, we can have more days, if not maximum 6 days of work. Thank you. This is from Ma'am Marisa Segovia of Iloilo Business Club. Anyone can answer, please?
That?
Yes, sir. Go.
I would like to answer that. So, for this particular question, the Department of Labor and Employment is part of a group that is called in the National Task Force. So we are meeting twice a week to determine the status of COVID cases as well as the capacity for the healthcare provision. So obviously, ang nagdidictate po for a particular LGU to be able to handle a rise or a fall of cases is the capacity of their healthcare provider. So the alert levels is especially handled here in Metro Manila because we're looking at granular lockdowns because it's a pilot study. However, if it's found out that it is actually going to improve the number of cases and is going to reduce the number of cases, this will be rolled out to the provinces depending upon the output here in Manila. Because if we see that, even with NCR leading the number of cases, with the granular lockdown, it was drastically reduced, then maybe we can also roll it out to all other provinces to ensure that because of course what we want is for lockdowns to not happen at all and for businesses to be at 100% always, even 24/7, because that's what we're after. What we're after is economic recovery. That being said, the LGUs would still have a greater leeway on how much they can open up because it's dependent upon their bed capacity in the hospitals as well as their human resource for health, because that's already an issue now. We have a lot of beds, we do not have enough nurses, we do not have enough physicians going around. So that's what we are looking at, because we don't want to have to open businesses and then after 1 week close again everything because of an upsurge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we do not see yet, no, provinces and cities outside NCR to independently determine the status of the quarantine or yeah. So thank you, Dr. Felix. Any more from Sir Nick, Ma'am Grace? I still have 2 more questions. Go lang po. Okay, let me continue. Next question is, please ask Dole how sustainable and stable the Camp and Tupad program affected by how sustainable and stable the Camp and Tupad program was able maybe to help the affected COVID employees and employers and businesses. Thank you.
Sige po, I'll take that question. Well, in reality, our intervention programs during the pandemic are really mitigation measures po. So these are our stopgap measures which we implement so that at the time that we are at the peak of a crisis or this, for example, this health crisis or this pandemic, we are able to provide assistance, immediate economic or financial assistance to our beneficiaries. But these programs are not designed po to really be like a long-term program. These are like one-time financial assistance, or like for TUPAD, it's between 10 days to 30 days intervention. So these are our mitigation measures as we navigate the pandemic. And of course, this is contingent po kasi on the budget or resources that the department has and we are lucky that during the Bayanihan 2, we are provided additional funding for these programs. But in terms of sustainable employment or long-term employment, there goes po dito po pumapasok yung ating employment facilitation services as mentioned po earlier. It is where we could really help you through the pesos and primarily through our Dole regional and field offices. We provide employment facilitation. There are job fairs, even virtual job fairs at this time of the pandemic. And then we conduct career advocacy still. There are employment coaching ongoing at the local level, and job matching, referral and job matching. So those are ongoing efforts guided by our labor market information. And we hope that through those programs, we continue to uphold and promote long-term or decent and sustainable employment po.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ma'am Grace. Okay, so thank you so much also. We would also like to acknowledge even our peso managers who are here. Nandito po sila. So we're listening to Ma'am Grace, and the mandate po, no? The order is also quite mataas for peso managers to also assist in the facilitation and in linking and matching of jobs, especially for those who lost their jobs during the pandemic. Okay, last question. Aside from obtaining safety seals, which Dole is currently implementing with other national agencies like the DTI, the OT, what other advice or recommendations can you give to business establishments who are working so hard to operate in our new normal? Can you share some best practices maybe done by other provinces, other areas, or LGUs that also can, that we can learn from, and maybe we can adapt and adopt and also practice here in Iloilo? Anybody po can respond.
Hello, ma'am. Okay,
Yes, sir.
sa best practices po, kasi ang safety seal natin is meant to increase confidence of both the client and the worker, okay, for an establishment that they are following the minimum public health standards. So one of the things that I have encountered in the cases here in Metro Manila, because the work from home is really taking its toll on the mental health of our workers. They are not mentally equipped to handle work from home more than a year. So what they're doing now is for those that are already vaccinated, okay, they are allowing restricted return to work. So those that are exclusively or 100% work from home, they're allowing workers staggered working or going to work on staggered days, so as to maintain at least not greater than 50% in the workplace, just so that they get to feel how they should be acting while they're at their workplaces. Because if you're going to ask all your workers to return to work at 100%, they would not know how to act because they have been at work from home for such a long time. So this is what we have encountered, that is a good technique. So easing in back into the workplace, those that are fully vaccinated, those that are not fully vaccinated, they are still at work from home and they are still encouraged to be vaccinated. So it's still not forced, but instead of constantly asking workers to be tested every now and then because they are forced to return to work, those that are not vaccinated are work from home, but those that are vaccinated are eased into work.
Okay, so I think that's one thing that we can also adopt here in Iloilo, by slowly going back to work, no, for those who are in a work from home arrangement. Okay, so it's 2:54. We would like to thank our three panel of discussants. Thank you very much for a very engaging Q&A session. And we would like to thank also Secretary Bello for the message, Asek Tutay, Ma'am Grace Baldosa, Sir Nick Bon, and Dr. Felix Labanda for taking your time off your busy schedules to meet with all of us virtually. So we also would like to thank Seda Hotel for providing us the venue for the technical preparations, and to the members of the Iloilo Business Club, the Daily Guardian, guests and friends who have been part of this Iloilo Business Online today. Salamat, salamat gid. So I hope the information that we have heard this afternoon, the presentations, will again help the businesses, our local businessmen in Iloilo, to steer their businesses and recover eventually from this pandemic. So thank you so much. See you in the next edition of the Iloilo Business Online. Maayong hapon sa tanan. Thank you. Thank you.
Salamat po.
Thank you
Stay
po.
safe, everyone.
Yes, kayo din po. Thank you.